Okay, here we go. Back to it.
Oh, you're waiting for me to open this up? Okay, all right. I mean, you're staring at me. I figured, Okay.
Yes, that's the signal.
The signal is just like stare at you like creepily, like in dead silence.
Yes, that's the signal. You've investigated, you've interrogated, and you now understand what was being sent to you through the.
Well, if we're gonna drop in there, you could at least wave your hand or something. I mean, it's like point, go.
I'm gonna go get those flags they use on the airport terminals where they're. Vroom, 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 vroom.
We're starting recording now, James. It's like, what? Timmy's in the well, Aaron? What? I think you turned right instead of left.
Lassie's in the well. Timmy's at the top, crying because
yeah.
his dog is probably more than likely not alive at the bottom of that well. How did Timmy survive that fall into the well, by the way?
And you look at that well and how rough and everything is. It's like, okay. And I also kind of wonder, like, throughout the production of that show, how many Lassies did they go through?
I think it'll be very morbid to dig into that. So instead of being morbid and going into like dog pet feelings,
that's for another episode, I guess, where we talk about.
We're gonna put a pin in Lassie and his impending doom,
and when we do
him down the road,
the Green Acres episode, we'll just cover that at the same time.
Yeah. Well, that'll be that'll be like our 46th. That'll be when we really come into our own on our podcast.
Yeah, when we're talking about Green Acres.
Okay, what was the thing you wanted to talk about?
Okay, well, I was gonna ask you. It's like, all right, when you're settling in and you're doing nerd things or whatever, what is your
nerd things?
Nerd things.
Okay, all right.
Watching a movie, whatever. Reading a book. Like, do you have like a preference for like snack or things like that?
That is a very good question. I am partial to pistachio nuts. I'm also partial to peanut M&Ms. And there is, I'm trying to think what the other, there's a third thing that is kind of my jam. This is going to sound a little strange. This almost kind of crosses into like weird food combinations that people don't understand. I haven't done it recently because I just haven't had the time to put them together. But usually what I would do if I was like sitting down to really just kind of kick back and I would have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, chunky peanut butter and strawberry jelly.
Creamy is that?
Again, communism.
Yeah.
My apologies to all the communist listeners we have in Russia.
I'm sorry, you creamy peanut butter fans, but you're not human anymore.
Right. You've been dehumanized.
You're a pod person.
You're a pod person. You're an alien. Anyway, so I peanut butter and jelly on some good like whole wheat bread or whatever, and chips and salsa.
Chips and salsa that's
together. No, like you eat the potato, you eat the peanut butter and jelly, and then you have the chips and salsa.
I can't scoot this chair back, otherwise I lose the mic.
Are you concerned for my safety?
I think
and
Aaron
your safety?
is a pod person. He's just blending in with the rest of us that like crunchy peanut butter.
Take me to your leader.
Yeah.
All your base belong to us.
I don't see mine actually ties back to like childhood snacks. I always loved Sour Patch Kids. Like I know it like those are the things that murder your taste buds. You can't taste anything for like hours afterwards. But
there's a tagline for Sour Patch Kids. They murder your taste buds.
Yeah, exactly.
In that accent too.
I mean, anybody go buy like a cheap bag from like Walmart or something and watch how quickly your taste buds just go gone. And you can't taste anything anymore.
Welcome to Nerds by Screenlight, sponsored by
Sour Patch Kids.
They'll murder your taste buds.
Yeah. We'll take that sponsorship money. Come on.
Sweet sponsorship money. There's a show on the BBC. I don't know what it's called, but the beginning tagline that a character will say in the opening moments of the show is "There's been a murder," and it's like a very angry. It's heavily accented. Obviously, it's BBC from somewhere in the north or the south or whatever. But you know, I envision the next commercial for Sour Patch Kids. Sour Patch Kids. There's been a murder.
Yeah.
We're expecting a phone call from them anytime now.
Yeah.
And while we wait for that phone call, we'll be right back to the podcast today. It's Ghostbusters 2. It's the best of the best, the cream of the crop.
Oh, God.
Top.
Help.
We need an adult in the room, apparently. When we come back after the intro, the fun begins. It's Ghostbusters 2 here on Nerds by Screenlight.
Get nerdy with me. Talk nerdy to me. Get nerdy with me. All I really need for you to do is just please.
I can sell.
Talk to me.
All right. Well, welcome back to the podcast. Hopefully you survived that 4.5 minute onslaught.
There's been a murder. We lost all our listeners.
You know, like,
I almost said viewers. I'm like, you're not
this
watching
is the weirdest nerd and geek podcast. They're talking about murder. I don't like it. They're, it's unsubscribe, unlike, blocked, reported.
They're just angry that they can't taste the podcast because the Sour Patch Kids
Taste
killed
the
their
rainbow,
buds.
taste the podcast.
Yeah.
There's our motto. We've been looking for one. Taste the podcast.
I just dragged the cold opener over into our main. I'm sorry, folks.
We got to put a pin in that. Put it back in the closet or in the pantry where it belongs.
We're continuing Ghostbusters talk.
Ghostbusters 2. So,
but I mean, we do have to talk a little bit about the animated series. But whatever. Go ahead with your thought.
So the dynamic that me and James have discovered, I and James, whatever the grammarly correct part of that is, we have discovered about each other is that I am far more, interestingly enough, more of a fanboy than I probably realized.
He's Ray Stantz.
I am. I'm such that childhood innocence of like, yay! And James is a fan, but he's more critical when
I'm
it
a
comes.
grumpy Egon.
Grumpy Egon. That's accurate. And the glasses don't really match, but you wear glasses, so that
Do you want me to
works.
poof my hair up like his? I can try. I don't think I have enough.
We'll put that on the podcast photo album or something that we don't have yet and probably never
We
will.
need to have someone Photoshop like you as Ray Stantz and me and Egon.
Oh no, that I would not. That no, please don't get any ideas out there on the internet. That's terrible. We've put that in the world now.
I have talented artist friends
I'm gonna drink
that
my,
are now
I'm
very
gonna
aware
drink my
of this.
chai and I reject this reality and insert my own. It's good chai.
Yeah,
It's from Zazzy's.
Zazzy's.
We are not sponsored by Zazzy. Zazzy is a local coffee shop in town, and it is on the Beaver Avenue near Main Street in downtown area. It's a lovely place for coffee, sandwiches, and I'll be there tomorrow. Well, today, actually, when you're listening to this, 8 to 2. Okay, so back
Come
to
down
the
and
original.
harass him, please. Come down and harass him,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, that's great. Do that. That's fantastic. Do that. That's wonderful.
I mean, we're going to eventually meet fan base somewhere at some point.
The
Might as well be at a
the
time
Nerds
where
by
they can
Screenlight
demand the
convention.
weirdest stuff of you.
Oh boy. Okay, we got to hurdle forward.
All right.
So Ghostbusters 2, we discovered that because we met this week. We usually meet once during the week to kind of plan out and talk about and sketch out and
Yeah,
all the
I mean,
things.
it's become kind of like a little job on,
Yeah.
like on the side.
But it doesn't pay anything.
Yeah, we're actually paying. We had to pay money to watch these train wrecks.
Okay, this is where we diverge. So when we met yesterday to talk about Ghostbusters 2, I hadn't had a chance to rewatch it yet. James had.
And he bribed me with food.
I did. And then you bribed me with chai for the show today.
Oh, that's true.
So it's equal parts bribing. I love Ghostbusters 2, and I said that, and I wrote it down here as well to remind myself that I absolutely adore Ghostbusters 2. And James was just like, really?
Yeah, I almost threw up.
In his mouth.
Yeah.
And possibly on the floor. We didn't go far down that conversation because I didn't want a gastrointestinal mess in my classroom.
Yeah.
So I love it. James, is the word enjoy or tolerate?
Well, I enjoy it.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like with my critical eye at things, when I tear stuff apart, it's
Right.
like I can enjoy something
Yes.
at the same time as rip it apart.
Yes.
I kind of look at it as like if I love something, whatever, I still need to be aware that it is flawed.
It
you
is
can't,
imperfect.
You cannot
yeah.
like pick something up and call it perfect, except for Back to the Future. But
Yeah.
that's beside the point. Like it's like for something like this, or like these movies, whatever. It's like I enjoyed one. I made fun of one.
Right.
Whatever. I didn't enjoy 2016. That was a nightmare.
Nobody
but
enjoyed
whatever.
2016.
This movie, I enjoyed it for its goofiness, but then I also just see there's flaws here.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's kind of like one of those things. Like, yeah, I come off as very, very critical, but no. Like if I say I enjoy something,
he still has love in his heart.
yeah, I
folks.
still
hearts.
I'm not completely
Heart.
dead inside.
You're not a Gallifreyan.
Yeah.
You're not the doctor. You only have one heart.
I probably have friends out there that are listening to us. They're like learning this for the first time, being like, "Oh man, James is like, oh, he's so critical on everything." But no, I'm really nice and I like stuff.
I come to our meetings with like a nice gentle pencil. James walks in with like an axe and like a sledgehammer, and he's like, "Let me at it.
Yeah.
I want to destroy it." Yeah. And that's the tone he uses too. It's kind of scary. I've gotten used to it.
Yeah.
We're working through that.
Yeah, he's from The Shining. You're
Yeah.
the wife, and I'm Jack Nicholson coming up the stairs.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well that's gonna fuel my nightmares for a couple of days. So
Here's James.
doesn't have the same punch.
Yeah.
So we need to explain a concept, and it's the concept of jumping the shark.
Yeah.
Before we get into this, now, jumping of the shark, you've probably heard it, like when a show jumps the shark or whatever. You may have your own interpretation of that metaphor. The reason why the jump the shark expression exists is because a show
Called Happy Days.
and it's an older show. It actually had Ron Howard?
Yeah,
as a
Ron
kid?
Howard was in there
Yeah,
as a
the
kid.
like legit
teenage son.
like
Yeah.
multi-billion, like the amazing director Ron Howard, the man who has shaped American cinema with Ridley Scott and all these, like that dude. He was a kid, like a little kid actor on Happy Days.
Oh, yeah, it's also important. Is like this is more for our kind of like younger listeners that are out there, because we know some of you old farts like us. You already know what this is, but we got to explain it.
I was not alive during the Happy Days run. I'll be very
not
clear.
really. So it's,
I was not alive. I'm not that old. Thank you very much. But I have a cultural awareness.
He has more gray hairs than I do.
Stop it. Okay, so on Happy Days, it may have been in one of the later seasons. I don't have the exact date because it's not important. But the concept comes when Fonzie, one of the characters.
Fonz is like the coolest man, supposedly the coolest man in the world.
Yeah.
Anything he does is just kind of like, hey, it's perfect.
Yeah. He's like on. Oh boy!
Well, they've probably seen a lot of the
he's-
references from
right.
Fonz in The Family Guy.
Yeah.
Where Peter always does like, he started the Church of the Fonz. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey,
It's and the Fonz is a copy of John Travolta's, like his greaser kind of character a
Yes,
little bit.
exactly.
So he's that kind of that piece, but he's also a good guy. Like he stands up for folks, and he is the moral center of that show. Like often he's the guy who comes in and saves everyone or saves people.
Yeah, he gives the advice to young and old people, and
Yeah.
it kind of like makes everything all right.
He's kind of the constant in that. Well, there's an episode where he ends up at like some kind of event.
Yeah, it was a beach event somewhere.
Yeah, and he's water skiing, and he ends up jumping over a shark.
Like literally jumping over a shark, folks.
Yeah, and we don't use that word. We try and avoid using literally in the absolute meaningful sense of it. But he ends up jumping a shark, and at that moment, that's when that term got coined, because critics and viewers were like, "Why is that happening? Why would the Fonz jump a shark?" And so, whenever you look at a television show, there may be a moment in the series where the show loses its heart or loses its direction.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's gone off in a direction you're just like, what is happening? Well, jumping the shark is what that's called. And
Yeah,
so
it's
they're
referencing that episode of Happy Days.
and the fact that it remains kind of a conversational cultural touching point, I don't know if kids these days know what that is or use that, but I look at shows, and I've watched a lot of shows in my life, TV shows, and there are a couple of shows in my world that have jumped the shark, and you're just like, if you could have just held on for a little bit longer and been a little more serious. So the reason why we're explaining Jump the Shark is because there's a moment. Well, there's different moments for us in this movie.
Yeah, when the
And we'll get
shark
through
jump
that.
happens, yeah.
But there's moments in this movie. Mine comes later. James starts relatively earlier, I think, where we feel Ghostbusters 2.
First 2 minutes.
First 2 minutes. We feel, again, different positions on the pole. Like he's north, I'm south, or east or west. I don't know how directions work, but the point of it is that his jumping the shark moment comes earlier. Mine comes later, but it does exist in this movie. Now, we'll talk about my view of this movie and where.
Well, I mean, just like the other ones, we're going to go in and out of this.
Yeah, and there's
talk
things
about it.
there's moments where this movie goes wrong, and there's moments where this movie I feel succeeds, but we'll get through that. So, let us begin in the first few minutes of the show.
Oh, no, we'll stop there. It's like, because there's something I want to
Okay.
talk about briefly.
Okay.
All right. Before this movie came out, there
Yes.
was actually an animated series called The Real Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
So it debuted 3 years before this movie came out. All right. It's really important to keep track of that or know that this happened, because they pull little details from the animated series and they drop it into this movie, because that animated series was super popular at its time frame, folks. It was like the #1 animated thing, especially at that time, animated show in America. Period.
Yeah.
Like they did a whole bunch of weird stuff where they made the characters more unique and kind of make them look a little different and all that kind of stuff.
Egon was blonde.
Yeah, and he had a huge like
Yeah,
weird
pompadour or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And they made like Ray big chunkier and stuff like that. They made like Venkman like skinnier and more of a sarcastic kind of like guy than he really was.
Yeah. But you got to play up those parts in cartoons so that everyone has their own identity. Like that's why Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, each of the turtles has their own specific like weapon. And I mean, that was for licensing reasons to sell more toys.
Exactly. And this is what kind of like fed into it. Like they were trying to merchandise. They realized with that first movie, it took them a while to kind of get it off the ground. That, we have a moneymaker here. We can generate toys. We can do all that kind of stuff. And they started realizing that with the animated series 2, which was run by J. Michael Straczynski, who did Babylon 5 and a bunch of other fantastic
who is apparently
shows.
Also relaunching Babylon 5, which is an episode
coming further down the line. But yeah, it was kind of one of those things. And the show kept kind of the serious... Like, look at the first movie when we talked about it. It's like, look, it's scary. Things are scary. There's a bunch of unknown. That rolled right into that animated series where it's like, there's some goofy stuff, but they took some serious footnotes and rolled with it into the show. So, like, the boogeyman that appears up in that show is a very scary villain. Yeah. And even Sam Hain, the ghost of, like, Halloween, very, very scary villain. Yeah. And they made, like, the ghosts and stuff, not so much ghosts, but, like, interdimensional beings, kind of like Gozer. So it's like that's kind of like important to pay attention to because they also changed some of the characters. That's why Slimer is free. Yeah. Because we'll see him in Ghostbusters 2 when he pops up, and he's just kind of free doing his own thing.
He's hanging around
That's
the
because
house.
the animated series, Slimer became their friend. Slimer hung out with them.
Yeah.
This actually in the animated series is where he started getting called Slimer. And I think it was like episode 6 from what I was able to research. Like they actually call him Slimer for the first time. So before that, he was just kind of like the ghost of...
Dobby is a free elf.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he was like the ghost of John Belushi. They had all kinds of weird goofy names for him and stuff. And also in that animated series, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Remember the thing they blew up? Well, apparently they recaptured him again, and he became a friend. And he would help them.
It's like Mr. Rogers' Ghostbusters neighborhood.
Yeah, it was really weird. So he became like a friend where they would summon him up sometimes to help him fight bigger, nastier spirits and extra dimensional beings and stuff.
Well, and I would believe it because again, it's cartoon and kids are watching and it's cool. Oh, look at the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So that's part of the groundwork.
Because there's going to be little things that kind of we're going to throw into this movie and why it kind of
comes into Ghostbusters too. Yeah. Okay, so. Let's just get it out of the way. Where is your jump the shark moment?
Dana Barrett in the opening scene with that carriage.
All right, we're done. This has been an episode of The Screen. The movie's a train wreck. It's done. Talk me through it. Walk us through it.
Okay,
help us understand.
It's kind of hard to in the opening sequence. All right, you'd see Dana Barrett like they give this nice screen where it's like 5 years later. All right, and they get Dana Barrett and she's pushing her baby carriage down the street. Yep. You see it roll over some sludge. Yep. Well, slime. Yep. But and when she pushes that cart down the street, all of a sudden it just takes off running. Right. And then you have Dana Barrett just chasing this baby carriage for a couple minutes. And, like, people don't care, whatever, it's New York City. No one's trying to stop this baby carriage, even though she's screaming her head off about, my baby, my baby. And I'm just kind of like, ugh.
Did she use that accent, though? My baby.
No, that's just me throwing it in there for fun.
Okay, good.
Because I'm just kind of like, this is, all right, what are we doing here?
Right. Oh, we're recording a podcast, James.
Well, I know we're recording a podcast, but I'm saying, like, in this thing, I was kind of like, huh. Okay, so it's like this is immediately taking the beats from the first movie where here's your kind of like introduction to kind of spooky stuff or weird stuff going on. Right. All right, but they make it super awkward where it's kind of more like I don't take it as seriously as they do the first one because the first one has that good horror movie kind of vibe in those first couple minutes.
This one's more like a Madcap Keystone Cops kind of feel.
Yeah, because like people are tripping and falling, and I think one guy stumbles and has like a pratfall while trying to grab the carriage and stuff. Right. It's kind of like, all right. Like so this is where we're at 5 years later.
We're pratfalling and throwing baby carriages into streets. Yeah. Good. That's a good tagline for the movie. So that's where his jump the shark moment comes. Mine is not for a while. So just hold on and stay steady. Keep all hands and feet inside the ride at all times, and we'll get to my jump the shark moment. Yeah. So we get an update on where everyone is. Briefly, the Ghostbusters were sued out of their minds because they blew up a city atop of a building. All these insurance companies and buildings sued them, so they couldn't operate as Ghostbusters. They were prohibited from operating as Ghostbusters. So Everyone's gone
no,
off.
they
to
were
their-
still allowed to do it for a while.
Oh,
but they
okay.
did mention the ghost dried up.
Okay.
It's like they haven't had a real haunting in
Yeah.
so
So
long,
business
whatever.
hasn't really been around.
Yeah, so business they can't recoup the money.
Right.
But it's like this is also one of those things where it's like, okay, we're stepping back to basically redoing number one again.
Right.
Where it's kind of like, okay, we're redoing number one, but first we need to have this weird kind of scenes where it shows everybody just kind of going back to doing what they were doing at the start of the first one.
Ray's running his bookshop. Venkman is running a TV show where he's a psychic. It's a psychic
Well, he's
show.
a psychic con man again.
Psychic comment again, and it's revealed that his show is pretty much a joke.
Yes.
Because no one wants to show up no one wants to come up on the show. Like it's really not well done.
Yeah.
Egon is back to experimenting on humans.
Yeah, he's back to doing science.
Back to doing science, which he loves and is his jam.
Let's take the puppy away.
Yeah. I love that moment because you're just like, oh, he's so scientific. And so Egon.
Well, remember, we still have that scene, too, where it's Ray and Winston together doing the children's party.
Yeah, so we also have the Ghostbusters, Ray and yeah, it fakes you out. It makes you think like they're showing up at a haunting, and they're like, oh, how many are there? There's 14. How tall are they? About 4 feet.
Yeah, they do give you a good hints though, like something's wrong here when they show the Ecto-1 scene of it driving.
Right, it's all dirty and it's smoking.
and
Yeah, things aren't good. So this is 5 years after everything happened. And the Ghostbusters obviously are all broken up. Like they're playing kids' birthday parties, and the kids are totally like whatever, dude.
They want He-Man.
Yeah, they're done with them, which is I think is a funny commentary on the toy market and how that like I don't know if it was. I think it was probably intentional.
Well, it's kind of funny because like I did a little bit of research, and the lights went off on us.
Again.
But I did a little bit of research, and I found out that He-Man ended before this movie came out, and Aaron's trying to kill himself by walking in the dark. Like, the school lighting doesn't like us. There, I fixed a trash can. It won't try to murder you. But yeah, I did some research, and I found out that He-Man, like, the show and everything was done before this came out. So it's like, why are these kids screaming for He-Man?
Oh, they're trying to promote the He-Man products.
I guess.
Oh.
They're trying to, those big sellers. But, I mean, I have to admit, I had He-Man figures.
Oh, I loved He-Man.
Those were cool.
He was the best, thebomb.com. Is He-Man by the power of Grayskull? Or is that somebody else?
That's by the power of Grayskull.
Yeah, by the power of Grayskull.
Yeah.
I got to keep
I have the power.
Yeah.
We need to cover that movie.
Yeah. Well, that and
add that to the list.
So He-Man and also Transformers.
Oh yeah.
Because the original Transformers, spoiler alert, the original Transformers movie, Optimus Prime dies.
Oh, and that music is epic.
But then I think in the TV series they brought him back.
Oh yeah.
Because people were really upset.
Oh, yeah.
And kids were heartbroken. You don't kill Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
And so they retconned it and fixed it, I guess. But in the movie, he bites the big one.
He gets murked.
Yeah.
And
he dies.
And they tried to bring in like Rodimus to be like his substitute. And
it just didn't feel right. But they
didn't build him up right enough.
Right. Well, and they took a really a pretty good risk in killing off Optimus Prime in the Transformers movie. That was a huge deal because that was a massive risk, and as a writer, that's an awesome thing because they always tell you
a main character.
Yeah, they tell you in your writing classes and in your screenwriting classes, they tell you kill off your darlings, kill the guys that you need to kill because that means something that has
George
weight.
R. R. Martin took this to heart. George R. R. Martin took this to heart.
Okay.
Oh, but the thing is too, before we got this movie, folks.
Yep.
It was rushed to production. And like we need to mention this. Bill Murray did not want to do this movie at all.
Right. He wasn't particularly thrilled.
He was not particularly thrilled to be in this movie. So we don't get the magic of that first one where all three of them are main characters, our main actors are on the same train.
The most kind of like togetherness we get is actually between Stantz and Zedmore. Like those two are still friends.
Yeah.
Those two, like they whenever they're together on screen, they're always doing something kind of whatever. And it's like you sense it comes back to that ride in Ghostbusters 1 across the bridge. They really do, as different as they are, and so I like that carries over into Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
I like that they're still, and it is interesting because I couldn't put a finger on what I was feeling about that, but you're kind of saying there is a separation even when they're together.
Yep.
There isn't that there, and the phrase are starting to show. And I actually forgot Bill Murray's character. He wanted his in the Ghostbusters 3 script. It was then that he wanted his character to die. It wasn't in Ghostbusters 2. It was in the to be written and to be shot, to be done Ghostbusters 3 that was eventually not canned and didn't get made, that he wanted his character to die in the first.
Yeah, like immediately.
Yeah.
Like, he wanted, like, their opening sequence where they show kind of a thing going wrong.
Yeah,
that's when he wanted death.
Venkman dying.
Bam.
And that, again, we've talked a little bit about Bill Murray in previous episodes. He's not as bad as Chevy Chase is to work with, but he is notoriously challenging and notoriously, I don't want to use the word stuck up, but just everything you hear and read about the guy, and it's not just like from one or two sources, it's from legitimately a lot, is
it's
very tough to work with.
It seems to be, if he wants to be in the project or not, will make it difficult or not for him to work with.
He loves it or hates it.
Was it the guy that does he did the Royal Tenenbaums and stuff.
I know that.
Like that director, apparently Bill Murray will do anything he says. Yeah. He loves him. Yeah. So he makes it pleasant to work with him.
Right.
And like I love that director, but his name is just escaping my mind right now. But it was one of those things where it's like, Bill Murray likes to work with him, but others like, if he doesn't feel the project, it's like a boat anchor.
He's going to phone it in or more.
Yeah, which is what we get here because he's not.
Yeah, there's mixed moments. There's moments where he's on screen. I'm like, hey, it's the old Venkman. He's back. Yeah. And then there's moments I'm just like, who the heck are you and what have you done?
Yeah. Well, notice how little time he actually spends in the uniform. Yeah. He's almost never in uniform.
Yeah. He's always in either like a suit or like an overcoat or something like that. I did notice that. I was like, what is going on there? Which is interesting. There's a lot there. Okay, so the story, developmental hell, it went through a lot of developmental hell. There were reshoots. There was a lot of reshoots because the original ending and the original way that it was written didn't resonate with audiences. And so they were reshooting with 2 months to go till release. Yeah, that's insanity.
Yeah, I mean they even made them like hurry up and write this, folks. Yep. This is like the money folks saying like we want this out so we can make more money.
Yep, it's kind of where at the beginning of the sequel, kind of dooming the genre or even dooming the license. It becomes very apparent here with Ghostbusters 2. Now I love this movie and I'll talk about why. So the story, we talked about that. Ghostbusters animated version, you talked about that. Okay, Peter McNichol is my favorite Ghostbusters baddie.
Yanush?
Yes. Oh, God. He is. So Peter McNichol, I like him in this movie. Now, I mentioned this. You were not aware of this, but Peter McNichol, I'm also familiar with him because he starred in the U.S. Bean movies. Yeah. So there was the Mr. Bean series on BBC, which is a brilliant thing, and you need to go online and do Mr. Bean TV series, not the cartoon, the actual live action. It's a bunch of shorts that are just fantastic, but the Hollywood produced 2 Bean movies. The first Mr. Bean and then the second for whatever. And Peter McNichol plays the character opposite him in both. The original Bean I loved. I haven't seen the second one because I don't know how I feel about it. But Peter McNichol is one of the I don't know if this is actually going to pass the test, but he's one of the finer actors I love. You're laughing, but it's true. Like he owns the roles he's in. When he's in the role as Mr. Bean's kind of straight person, because he, like Mr. Bean, comes across from the UK. And he comes into this art museum, and he's the expert apparently, and he gets invited in. And there's a moment where he accidentally cleans off the face of Whistler's mother, and in a panic, like draws on this like stick figure face in this big old white blotchy space, puts it back in, and when Peter McNichol's character comes in and says, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" and Mr. Bean, who is not verbal generally, says, "What do you think about this?" and he shows him and Peter McNichol loses it and just like, "Oh, sweet mother, what? Oh, good God, oh, sweet holy mother of Moses, put that away!" And he turns to us he's like, okay, I'm calm, okay. Show it to me again. I'll see if I'm okay. And then turns around. Holy sweet mother! How holy mother! Put it away! Oh God, it's so ugly. What are you doing? Oh my God! And it is I still remember that scene because it's just he's like, ow no, because he's an art guy. Anyway, so I tell you that story to tell you why I love Peter McNichol in this movie, because his accent is all over the place.
Well, I remember I told you this about his accent. Yeah, he came up with it on the spot.
Yeah.
And this was a surprise kind of thing.
And how his mannerisms.
Yeah, how creepy and weird he is.
But he's not like menacing weird. He's just
goofy weird.
Goofy and awkward robot weird. And he tries to make a play for.
He's kind of the substitute for Louis Tully from number 1. Remember I said this is a rehash of 1. Louis Tully with his weird advances toward Dana, and then now you have Janusz, the weird foreigner dude with his weird accent, doing the same stuff.
But it's still funny.
Ugh.
Okay, well,
I don't know. To me, it came off as more like Creeper level 1000. We have a class 3 floating Creeper
apparition. I just like it because he's certain.
Like I can respect okay, I like it what he's portraying, but I'm like, to me it just hits as like, this is a weird creepy man. Why would I want to work with this guy?
I think for me it's because I know Dana Barrett's not going to put up with him, and I know that she's just going to be like, get away, weirdo.
Well, remember we had this talk about Dana's character briefly.
Right. Yeah,
it changed in this movie, folks. Like, go look at number 1 and look how like strong and independent whatever she is.
Enough, and it didn't change enough to the point that I could trust.
Well, she wasn't going to give in to Creeper Man,
right? And that's what makes it funny is that he is so blinded to her abilities and her strength that he's just like, and she's just like, oh, no,
yeah, no.
And I think that's what amuses me is that he continues. He has no like emotional
that was
understanding.
Louis too.
Yes, but it's a different kind of character, and it's still funny. And get over it.
You're just upset because I'm right. They rehashed number 1 so bad,
but I like it. Dang it, I like it a lot. I love that character.
It could have been anybody else,
but it was Peter McNichol, and he deserves.
No.
Oscar.
I'm talking about him like yearning after someone else. It didn't even need that to be Dana.
But I think that's what makes it funny because he has no understanding of that she doesn't want. Like anybody else would have been like, okay, she's not gonna have she's not giving me a time of day. I'm walking out.
Oh yeah.
But he is just so like, oh, I must try. And yes, it is a retread of Louis, but it's still funny. It's not like it's like, oh, this is boring. It's like, oh, let's see how she handled this. Let's see his mannerisms. Let's see how he does this. I don't know. I love to watch that. So Peter McNichol is my Oscar-winning pick for this film. I know that probably upsets the Force in 16 ways to 1. There's an interesting moment in the intro with the baby carriage. The music has that Elmer Bernstein feel, but it doesn't quite fit.
Nope.
And that is the part that really disappoints me. The music of this movie, it's one of the very few things I will criticize fiercely. This soundtrack is a disaster.
Yeah. And
it made me angry.
Yep.
When they started playing the remastered or remade or remixed version of the Ghostbusters theme in this movie, when it starts to hit, I sat in my chair and I was like, good God almighty, what is this?
Yep.
Like, I didn't verbalize it, but I was just like, who did this? Who's responsible? I'm writing a letter.
They did a whole bunch of stuff. Like that weird rap song that's in there.
Yes, that was my point. Is this?
They have Bobby Brown's song thrown in there as well. I mean, they have all this kind of weird stuff.
No shade on the talent of the musicians involved.
Because at the time, Bobby Brown was good stuff.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yep,
isn't Bobby Brown dead already? Is he still alive?
I don't remember. You might want to Google that one. The music in this one doesn't really hit.
No, and it's disappointing because, like, the original had such pitch perfect musical moments, and it was like it hit, and you're like, this is exactly what I needed.
Yep.
I didn't even know I needed this.
Does it disturb you to know that the Ghostbusters theme song is an actual song in the Ghostbusters universe?
Yeah, no, it doesn't disturb me.
It doesn't disturb. No. I thought it was really weird. I'm like, what? No. Like they played at they played at the kid's birthday party.
Bobby Brown is still alive.
Okay.
I'm very sorry, Mr. Brown. I apologize for thinking you were.
He did make a cameo. Oh, there's a lot of cameos in this movie too.
I thought he died because his wife Whitney Houston, died.
Yeah, we're not gonna crack open that kettle of fish. We'll just say this man deserves all the spit in the world.
Poor Bobby Brown. Okay, he's still alive. Hopefully, he lives for quite some time beyond today. But the music irritates me, and there's a lot of things that I will accept in this movie that I will paper over with my fanboy love, but the music, I would almost say that it's my secondary jump the shark moment.
Okay,
because it's not appropriate, it's not tonally correct.
Yep.
It's not even. It doesn't make sense. It's just like, ooh, we got a remix version of our song. We're gonna throw it in there. And I actually read in there that I think they actually courted him and were like, hey, we want your music, And I think one of the big reasons why he got in is he has a cameo in the scene where they show up at the mayor's office or something.
Yeah, he's like the driver.
Yeah,
like,
and
hey, can I get a proton pack for my nephew or something like that? And Egon's like, it's not for kids.
Right. And it was like, but it was that moment of just like, oh, why did you do? You sold it out, and it like if. I guarantee you, if I went back and I got the DVD and I went through and I removed the old theme and I put the new theme, put in the new theme, it would be 100% better.
Yep.
because it would meet and fit with the tone of the movie and the characters and the stuff. And during the montage, it made me angry, and I was just like, why are you doing this? The lyrics, you're really overplaying the show versus tell.
Yeah.
The lyrics were like, oh, we're doing this thing and we're doing that thing. And I'm like, okay, cool. Lyrically, lovely, great work on the music, but you are totally hitting me over the head with a 2-ton 2x4 saying, understand what's happening. Boom, boom, understand. Do you understand now? Boom. We're going to make it more sense to you. Here's more music with lyrics that explain what's happening on screen. Boom, boom. I'm just like, I am not an idiot. I'm a smart individual. I went to college, okay? I have a bachelor's. I know things. I can explicate the rhetoric and examine the discourse better than most anybody. Don't you
movie down to me.
Don't you music down to me or movie. Yeah, anyway. So that's a point of contention. It will be a point of contention for the rest of this movie. It's my second jump the shark moment because it's just like you.
But your love is lifting me higher.
We're gonna get there eventually. Okay.
Than I've ever been lifted before.
So Spengler is experimenting on people, and I love this scene. Now
I think this scene is actually pretty funny.
It is
because this reestablishes our Egon.
Yeah.
As
the scientific.
He's the super nerd here.
Yeah.
He's the super hard scientist. Well, not so much hard science, but it's like he knows his hard sciences, and the things he chooses to study are rather odd.
Yeah.
And
if you tried to do the experiments in today's day and age,
oh man,
he wouldn't last a minute. They'd be like, this is not appropriate testing process on humans. You're done. But here, he's like, let's turn the temperature up to 95. Hey, they just got told they have to wait another 30 minutes. And it's so cool because he doesn't explain it. There's no we're funded by this to do this. This is a part of my study. It's just, here we are, we're doing study on these people. And he talks about the emotional power of the room or whatever it is measuring it. And it's just kind of like, okay, cool, that makes sense. And you see the effects of what he's doing.
Yeah. And the thing is, I also love it's like we get to this Egon because Dana goes to him. Straight up, and something weird happens.
And he's the one she goes to.
She runs to Egon to help her.
She knows he knows stuff.
Yeah.
She knows he'll take him. She knows he'll take her seriously.
Yep.
But she also knows he will do the full science workup.
Yep.
He will go, okay.
He's going to eliminate everything. He does establish this too. He says it in another part of the movie or something where it's like you need to eliminate these types of and move on to it. You're doing the scientific method basically.
I think it speaks to Dana's character, but it also speaks to Egon, as Egon is the pure scientist of all of them.
Yep.
And she trusts him the most.
Yep.
And I love that moment because it tells us so much about Egon and how much that, and it comes back to when we did Afterlife, which our review will have hit last week.
Yep.
Just how emotional that moment is at the end of Afterlife when he shows up. There is so much history with this character.
Well, the thing is, there's even more if you watch the animated series.
Yeah.
They explain so much in there about Egon's past and how he is.
Yeah.
And how he got to be where he's at and why he for being the big science brain he is and believing in facts and truth and all kinds of stuff, how he got into the supernatural because he has a war with the boogeyman.
Oh, okay.
And that's all in the animated series, folks.
I'll
So
have to
I
put
mean,
that
but
on my
the
list.
boogeyman is a freaky weird. It is some serious stuff. I'm telling you,
I love it.
They take that, and those episodes are super serious, where it's Egon versus the boogeyman.
That's so cool. But that's the power of a character that has a lot of depth, a lot of richness.
The thing is, they don't really give that to you in the movies, but you can kind of believe Egon because of the way he is.
Well,
anyway.
and you believe that Egon has seen some stuff.
Yeah.
Egon has made the fact that he was in the first movie, they're like, it would have worked if you would have stopped me from drilling a hole in my head. He's just he is not to be messed with. Egon is he's driven. So Venkman,
he's our believable mad scientist.
Yes. Now, here's the thing where we probably will disagree. I am okay with Egon's having emotions in this movie. And
I'm not.
All right, pardon us. We're going to go out in the street and fight with trash cans in the alleyway.
No, go get your proton pack. We're going to do this.
Do this Ghostbusters style.
Dueling proton packs.
Anyway, so Egon smiles a little bit more in this movie. He has a few more emotional expressions. Makes jokes. I view it as he's kind of trying to figure out what humor is. I think it would have worked a little better if his humor was misplaced and kind of landed flat. I think that would have been more of like an appropriate way, because then people would have been like, Egon, you're not funny.
no,
Stop trying to be funny.
You weren't saying this yesterday, but when
Right.
we talked over our notes, but it was one of those things where it's like, no, it's like I think if they would explain that Egon was trying to be different
Yeah.
or whatever, trying to bring out more things
Yeah,
and
yeah.
trying to get along with people more, if they would have done something where they showed that instead of like him being like, I'm studying humans.
Right.
You know, it's been like, no, I'm trying to be more humorous things and did those types of things.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
But having him just suddenly like smiling and
Yeah.
making these one-liners and
Yeah.
stuff, that's not Egon.
Yeah.
That's Venkman.
Yeah. But
So it's
because
like-
Bill Murray was less than thrilled
Yeah,
with being there,
Bill Murray was dead inside and shoot, and just wasn't throwing like the energy that he had in the first one into this one.
they had to rely on Harold
other
Ram-
sources.
right?
It
On
just-
Harold Ramis to carry the show.
So
a little
that's
more.
why I have issues with it. No. It's like Egon, because of the way you gave us Egon, the way you built him up into this character where he's super logical,
Yeah.
super detached from his emotions.
Yeah.
He's not going to do those things unless you reasonably explain why he's doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the guy that straightened a slinky. They explained that in this movie where they gave him part of a slinky as a child,
He straightened
and
it.
he straightened it.
I love Egon's character. Harold Ramis was a brilliant, brilliant actor, and I'm sad we didn't get him in Afterlife. I'm sad we didn't get him for Ghostbusters 3.
Yeah, I'm sad we didn't get him for more stuff.
He was that good.
I mean, the other thing we have to have like issue with early on and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Half the city got blown up. They got sued by a bazillion different
Yeah.
things or whatever. And suddenly, 5 years later, people just don't believe in ghosts. That's a theme. That's an issue with the world that was established
Right.
from the first one and stays through this movie. People don't believe.
Right. Well, it also extends to Afterlife.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you had all these events. Well, I mean, Afterlife, they do say it's like this is
Right.
30 some odd years
Right.
later, whatever.
Right.
They kind of disagreed with the stuff of.
Yeah.
They kind of skimmed over too.
Yeah.
Let's be honest in Afterlife. But it's like ghosts are real.
Right.
How can you completely disbelieve
I
these
think
things?
what they were
Especially 5 years. It's like so close.
I think they were because one of the comments that comes later from the mayor is the people of New York are supposed to be angry, unhappy, and whatever.
Yeah.
I think for New York, people's memories are very brief because that city is packed.
No, that's bull.
Oh.
9/11, sir.
But this is like, okay, let us swerve out of 9/11.
But I'm
back
saying,
into
the
Ghostbusters.
New Yorkers would remember something like this.
Yeah, but in the
It sticks
universe,
around. You blew the top off a building in Central Park.
in the universe of Ghostbusters, what I think the theme is, and I will stand on this hill. I may not die on this hill, but I'll defend it until
He's
I
dead
want to
climbing up this hill.
run away from it. Is I think within the theme of Ghostbusters in the universe, what they're trying, and maybe they failed to make this clear, whatever, is that people's beliefs or belief in things is not as concrete as in our world now. Like, yes, anyone who was alive on September 11th, 2001 remembers that. I think what Ghostbusters, the universe, and even with 2016, because there were a lot of people, like reviewers, who were like, well, how would these people not remembered what happened in New York in those
Well,
years?
remember, they kind of said that didn't happen. They used that in the trailer to hook people and try to
Right.
attach
Haven't
it to
seen
the
it-
first one.
haven't seen Ghosts
But in
until
the
30 years.
2016, that first Ghostbusters movie didn't happen.
Right.
All that stuff didn't happen. So that's why they wouldn't remember that.
Right, but I think the theme between Ghostbusters 1, 2, and Afterlife is people's memories and their willingness to believe in the supernatural is very short. Now, whether or not that's actually the case and whether or not that's supported by a bunch of explicating evidence, I will freely admit that it's not.
I mean, it's the same mayor.
Memories
For
are
example,
short,
he
James.
saved that city.
We have
and all
so
those
many more
people.
pages of notes.
When they blew up Stay Puft, I mean, come on. Like, it's one of those things like you wouldn't just kind of just like totally forget these guys.
We will agree to disagree at this loggerheads of a moment.
I can feel the crowd behind me, and we're not even done with this yet.
Let us jump off that hill and let us go to Jack Hartemeyer, who is the least favorable, least rememberable character. He is the EPA officer Peck
Yep.
of the show. He's forgettable. I don't care about him.
Well, the thing is, he's forgettable because it's also one of those things like they never. Why does he hate these guys so
Right.
much?
There's not a story given there.
They
I'm sure
don't
there is.
tell anything. There has to be something.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm sure there is.
his car got wrecked due to Stay
Right.
Puft blowing up, and now he hates the Ghostbusters. But they don't give us that. He just has this massive hate for the Ghostbusters that just comes from
Yeah,
nowhere.
and it doesn't have a reference, and that's why I'm just like I don't.
I mean, because at least Peck was doing EPA stuff.
Yeah.
He was trying to make sure everything was safe.
Well, and we talk about the EPA of the 80s. It wasn't very well liked. There was a lot of that.
Don't you regulate us and try to make the nature safe?
Ronald Reagan had his merits. Anyway, so Jack Hartemeyer, Venkman continues to feel off.
I feel sorry for that actor too, because they shoved him into the same role in every movie during this time period. He was always the jerk.
He's making money though, and he's not short for change.
That's true.
I mean,
I wonder where he is now. Has he done anything lately? I mean, you don't have to Google this, but I'm just curious. It's kind of like, here comes the Google action.
Google Fi. That's an actual phone plan, not Google Fi. Jack Hartemeyer.
Google no jutsu.
Jack Heidemeyer was played by Kurt Fuller.
Okay.
And he is still with us.
Okay, that's good.
He's a character actor. So he has played he was in the original Running Man.
Oh.
He was in Ghostbusters 2. Yep. Let's see what else. Stuart Saves His Family, apparently. I think he's been in more television. He was in a couple of movies there. The New Guy. Okay. He plays kind of like either like teachers or like authority figures.
Yeah, that are kind of jerky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, I feel bad for him. You got typecast.
Yeah. So he's played on a lot. He does a lot more television than he does TV. He's more of a character actor. I get a kick out of him. I really like him. He played on The West Wing. So he's played kind of.
Oh, that's
bit
true.
parts.
He was in West Wing.
Yeah, for 2 episodes, he was a civilian advisor or something. He played. Yeah, so he's had work. He's still working. Like the dude. Oh, he played on. Oh, he was the doctor on Psych. Yes, that's how I know him.
Okay.
So he was Dr. Coroner Woody Strode on Psych. And so he's played that role in all the Psych movies.
Oh.
I love Psych.
I've never watched it. So.
It will fill your heart with rainbows, unicorns, leprechauns, and hopes and dreams.
You sure you're talking about me?
We'll find a way to cram it in
probably
there, James.
Just tear apart Psych. Aaron be crying here on the podcast.
There's no crying in baseball.
There's no crying in podcast. The audience can't see the tears.
I'm putting myself on mute. I need a moment. Okay, so Ray's Occult is one of my favorites. I love just the idea of that occult store and that Ray is there in the community. The red phone from there is also an Afterlife. So it is kind of cool to see Ray's Occult after watching Afterlife.
I actually thought it was a good transition for that character to do something like that, because that's Ray's kind of belief in all this kind of stuff.
Right. And actually Dan Aykroyd does have supernatural beliefs. Like he's
big into spiritualism.
Right.
Woo.
And he was even that way before he took the Ghostbusters gig. Like it's been.
Well, I mean, the first Ghostbusters movie, they were like running out of a gas station out in space and all kinds of. That was the first draft, folks. It was really, really crazy. And it was like, I think it was Reitman and Ramis. They're kind of like, no, let's pare this down.
You gotta love Aykroyd, and he's a good guy. Like there's an episode on YouTube where they went and found the old Ecto-1 many years ago before all the movies came back, and they reinvented it, and it was very touching because he loves that car, he loves that franchise.
Well, he loves all this stuff deeply.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of like, how did he let this one get out of control? But then again, he was the guy that wrote things really out of control in the first place. So it's kind of one of those things like...
I think Dan Aykroyd actually personally threw the shark at this movie to have it jump, maybe, perhaps. Not intentionally, but his crazy way of doing things. Egon's sense of humor in the Ray's Occult store is weird. I don't like it. Mm-hmm. It's one of the very few times where I'm just like, no, make him awkward or don't make him funny at all.
Yep.
Venkman is mean. I don't like it.
Yeah, like you'll see that in a lot of Venkman's lines and stuff where it's like I guess he's supposed to be kind of bring us the old Venkman where he's kind of playful,
but he's mean towards his friends.
But he's mean.
Yeah, and that's just I just kind of
he comes off as a jerk.
Yeah, and I'm just like, why? What is going on? You never asked me when we get to Dana about Dana's situation, and her and Venkman are going back and forth, and he's
their
like,
busted relationship.
Yeah, and she just looks at him and says, "You never asked me."
Yeah,
and I love that moment because it does push back on Murray because he does change his tone there a little bit, and it does. But he gets softer as that scene goes.
Well, he gets softer when he's around the kid.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. I don't know if that was intentional or just because Bill Murray likes cute kids. I mean, everyone likes cute kids. Maybe that helped kind of soften his ego or soften his whatever you want to call it.
Because, I mean, if you look at him, they do give him some scenes where it's just him and Oscar, which is the name of their Dana Barrett's son.
Yeah.
And he's like super sweet playing with the child. He likes the child, whatever. And that's like kind of like, there's Bill Murray.
Yeah.
we're actually seeing Bill Murray here. He appeared.
Yeah, he's with us once more.
But then, like, any other scenes and stuff where he's acting everybody else, we're like back to like, is this our weird Venkman that is kind of jerky?
He's off tonally. He's off, and it's wildly frustrating. Yeah. So we've got Venkman's very wrong. We get glimpses, whatever, yada yada yada. The drilling in the street scene, that was good. I mean, I would have to say, like, that's the scene to me where it's like, all right, here's our original 3. Yeah. Here's our original 3 goofballs and the stuff they're trying to do. And they're like calling, like, hey, what do you? Oh, some guy from City Hall made us do this, and they're just getting at it. And then they drill it, and they get down, and they find the goo, and then they cut power to the entire city.
Yeah.
I love it. I know it's absurd.
No. I think it's absurd and it's funny, but it's also kind of like, I'm like, that's a little aggressive for kicking one pipe.
Yeah, there's a little hyperbole. I will freely admit I'm not a technical genius. I'm a language arts teacher, but there's no way that. Well, actually, here's the thing though.
And here's
in 1980s New York though, was the electric system, the infrastructure, was
more robust?
Was it less robust? And could that be? I don't know.
That's sensitive. Because you see him, he only really kicks one pipe, folks, and all of a sudden, bam!
Yeah, all of a sudden, all powers out.
It's like, okay. I'm like, well, all right. I mean, I would have got like if they would have just blanked out a block.
Right.
That'd been great.
Right, but it's the whole city. I think that's why they end up in jail.
But yeah, it's also one of those things like when you see this scene, this is one of those things where like I notice is like, all right, this slime is like really deep down in the ground.
Yeah.
How did it get up in the sidewalk in the first 2 minutes in the first place?
Suspension of disbelief, James.
Because like you should have other people having events in that same location.
But that would require so many scenes and so much writing, and this movie was rushed.
It should have been written better.
You could write your letter, care of Dan Aykroyd, and strongly worded.
Yeah, develop a time machine and go back and fix this,
Sir, Mr. Aykroyd, sir.
Yeah, that actually would be calling him Mr. Aykroyd, sir.
He probably, if the United States was a monarchy, he would have been knighted. Like that's how good he is. He's a staple of Americana.
Maybe. I mean, you really don't see him much anymore. He doesn't get headlines anymore.
Well, he's getting older.
Yeah.
The cast, they're getting older.
Go speak to your alien friends. They probably have a time machine.
they probably could take
this.
us back. The possession by Vigo. I love all of his scenes. I love Peter McNichol. I love him getting possessed. It's fantastic.
He zaps him in the eyeballs and he's twitching and stuff. Yeah, that was a great little scene.
And then he shows up at Dana's house or Dana's apartment, and she's like, no, never mind. And then he turns around, and it's in the darkness because the power's out, and his lights glow as like headlights to guide him out. I'm just like, oh, I love that little detail. I know it's probably people are just like, oh my gosh, it's so stupid. But it was funny to me because I just love Peter McNichol. Maybe my Peter McNichol
fanboy is getting in the way.
They cut power to the entire city. Let's see what else here. McNichol, I love the character. I wrote at least once or twice on a page. McNichol, love the character. McNichol. So they're arrested, and they're put on trial.
Ugh.
And. Well, no, they're not arrested. They are. Oh no, they are arrested.
Yeah, they are arrested for what they were doing to the city.
Yeah, for what they're doing to the city. And so Louis Tully is back.
Yeah, as
he's their lawyer. So I wrote, it's not Perry Mason, but it's still fun. And I, because it's not like serious drama, but it is kind of just fun to watch. Rick Moranis kind of just have fun on in the scene, and have the judge kind of going back and forth, and like it's
chewing it up.
Right. It's not like fine chocolate mousse. It's a pumpkin pie.
I just think it was way over dramatic.
I agree.
Especially that judge's rant. I mean, like he's not even like in contact. Like we established, like the slime
the goo,
can do stuff to you if it's in contact with you, whatever. He's not in contact with it, and he's just going off in this huge, long, over dramatic rant. And it's kind of like, whoa, pump the brakes here.
Right.
Like this is a little too much for what you guys are going, because it's like a weird offbeat, serious, super serious moment where he's screaming at him.
Right.
And when what was supposed to kind of be lighthearted due to Louis Tully's kind of awkward lawyering, you know?
Yeah.
And it just hits me so wrong, that judge. It's just like, no, stop.
I was trying to remember where things were. I was worried that I had the street digging seed early, but I'm right on track. So the scene in the courtroom happens, and we get the return of the ghosts.
Oh yeah, we get the Scoleri brothers.
The Scoleri brothers,
which they made toys of and all kinds of stuff. Of course they did. That's why they look the way they do.
I love it because the courtroom does get practically affected, like in a practical effect.
It's our
destroyed.
ballroom scene from the first movie. Guys.
Yeah, but it's fun because you do get to see these tables getting tossed and breaking and smashing, and there's no CGI in this scene. It's full-on practical effects. Things are actually happening, and I love it. The ghosts are back. The courtroom is destructed. They're back to busting. This is where we disagree very vehemently.
Yeah, very much.
So, they turn on their ectopacks and do, re, Egon. Yeah. And he gives that little grin. I loved it because I felt, important statement to make in therapy, I'm
letting you get it out. I like a good counselor here. Before I bring you, it's okay, what we need to do is we need to up your dosage. And then we need you
up my dosage of vanilla chai from Zazzy Cafe. I'll start my dosing tomorrow.
We're giving them so much plugs. They should give me a discount.
That's right.
You get one already.
Yes, because I work there. Go to Zazzy Cafe on Beaver Street in Fort Morgan, Colorado, for fantastic drinks, food, and other snacks. Zazzy. The place you go. I don't know. That's not their motto. Anyway, so I love that smile from Egon because I feel like, and you'll disagree with this, I know. I feel like Egon is finding his joy, and we know that he shouldn't because that's not his character. Yeah. But as a guy who loves to see characters kind of grow a little bit, I think he's almost in that childlike innocence of finding happiness and not knowing what to do with it. Yeah. And that may explain how his jokes are awkward and he's a little weird and Egon, I love that moment. You don't.
I don't. Because okay. I'm just like, they shouldn't, if they were going to have it, play it flat.
Yeah.
As Egon would, and take away his smile.
Right.
Like that goofy smile he gives when he does it. I'm just like, no, give us the Egon.
Right.
Or it's like, if you're going to do this, give us that Egon, and the others, just kind of staring at him, looking at him all weird.
Yeah.
Like, and where are you going with this?
When he does, maybe he does it to like Egon, and just looks at him and goes, "What?"
Well, not angry like that, but I'm just saying, give us the Egon that he knew he was playing before. Because again, like I said, if you're gonna have Egon try to be more human versus what we know him to be, you need to give us an explanation of why.
Right.
You need to just give us some pointers of why this character is growing this way.
Yeah.
Versus suddenly just being like Egon with one-liners, bam, 2 in the box, ready to go.
Right. Yeah. I love that moment.
We be fast and they be slow. And I'm just like, no, that doesn't fit. Because that's a one-liner in guys that don't do one-liners together like that.
I think they were trying. Maybe they've developed.
And the thing is,
camaraderie.
after all these years of apart, doing their own things.
Maybe remember, they're happy to be back together again.
And that's fine. They could have them do awkward high fives where they miss and slap each other in the face or something. Because these are awkward, weird
That's physical comedy. This is not a physical comedy movie.
But I'm saying it's like, these guys are, remember, they're supposed to be our awkward rat catchers, exterminator guys that aren't hero types.
Right.
So these one-liners and things like that don't fit with these characters.
Yeah.
That's not their thing. Like if they went up and tried to do a jumping high five and then they completely missed and follow each other.
I would protest harshly against
Ghostbusters.
That. Yeah,
that's our weird, awkward, Ghostbusters guys.
Like an 80s
instead
moment.
of doing we have, a one-liner that we can all say together where it's like, definitely that doesn't fit Egon's whole thing, like doing that.
It works for me. It doesn't work for you, which I respect. You are hewing closer to the core characteristics of the characters. I like that we get to see the mechanics of ghost wrangling.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Because it's like, you always, in the first movie, we see a little bit of it, but we don't see it as like, okay, hey, you need to drag him over here.
Yeah.
And it's not like there's no front loading of, well, this is how it does it, and this is the magnitude and the
like you see them
frequency.
How they kind of hold on to him with the beam once they got him wrapped up,
and then they slowly move him over. Bring him over. And so it's hard to do. Like, you have to be able to get them, and they put two.
They struggle and fight.
Yeah. And there's two ghosts go in the trap.
Yep.
which I think was kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, I thought it actually cool when they did this kind of more explanation,
Yeah.
because they do that in the animated series, by the way, where like
yeah.
when you hit a ghost with your beam,
Yeah.
you're kind of like, you are literally like wrangling them, fighting with them to
okay.
move them around and do things like that with them. Versus, I can throw my beam like a whip and zap ghosts and
Right.
destroy them like in 2016.
2013. I almost said 2013. 2016 was when that movie
Yeah,
came
where
out.
like when they were doing stuff with their things, it's kind of like an effortless little
Right.
like, I can just whip it across the room like nothing.
More Clint Eastwood than it actually
Yeah,
is.
so it's like
High
seeing
Noon.
this is kind of like, all right, look how they have to like,
Actually,
fight and
that's
kind
not
of
even right.
struggle with the ghosts.
Because Clint Eastwood is actually like a solid Western kind of deal. What would you compare that to? I don't even want to use the term spaghetti Western to describe what they did in 2016, because spaghetti Westerns are solidly directed and really well done with...
We can do an episode on Good, Bad, and the Ugly. That's a fantastic movie.
I'm just trying to think of the metaphor to use here. In 2016, it's like... Okay, 2016 is like an arcade gun game versus like this one, which is supposed to be like... This is the spaghetti Western. It's a spaghetti Western versus an arcade game.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Kind of. So yeah, but I'm like, like I just said, it's like, this is a good scene of like, this is how the stuff kind of functions and how they were actually capturing and moving ghosts around. Where they couldn't show this in the first movie,
Right.
because they just didn't have the budget and the technology kind of like to mess with it as much as they do. Because like movies and technology kind of did move along in those 5 years pretty fast.
They did.
Because they were doing a bunch more movies.
Yeah, they were. The new theme is wrong. That's what I have that note.
That's fine. Like we both agree with that.
The new. I love the advertisement where like they're in the bed and Janine's like, oh no, like I love the kitschiness of it. Slimer.
Again, that's a callback to the first one where they have their weird commercials.
Slimer's back.
Suddenly everything's fine.
Yeah.
Fine and dandy again. When everything was so down and out,
Right.
now everybody believes again. Ghosts are real.
The slime scene. So much. I don't even know what I wrote here.
Oh, the bathtub.
Oh, so much. No, the slime scene, like in the that they went down and they got the slime or whatever.
Oh yeah, we're captured with the little thing. That was we're
so much.
stepping
There was
back a
so
little bit.
much show going on there. It was kind of cool though. I liked it. The testing of it, how they testing of it, and
and
like,
the toaster and everything.
yeah,
that was good.
that I appreciated. The fact that I appreciate a good Jackie Wilson song like anybody else, and I think in this scene, in this moment, separate from what happens later, which is when my shark gets jumped, this works because it's fun. It's like, oh, this is kind of cool, and of course, Venkman's like, oh, we could market this thing, and he's totally.
Well, the thing is, this is like, I was happy to see this Venkman show up. Because this is the Venkman we know.
Right, he's the carnival man.
Let's
He's the
make
game show
some
host.
money.
Yeah.
This is what matters.
And it's not like mean and malicious. It's like, hey, this is going to take care of our money problems.
Yeah. Like everybody's going to want a dancing toaster.
Yeah. So Venkman at where? Oh, Venkman shows up at the art gallery.
When they suck in their guts.
No, this is the first time. So
okay.
Venkman goes first to go find out about this dude, and what I love about this scene is when they go to shake hands. Peter McNichol's character, it's like Venkman's going for a full handshake, and then Nichols' character just kind of
does the awkward fingertip,
like and he's just like
that's one of those things like that. I've had handshakes with people like this before. Usually like foreigners that aren't used to doing handshakes, and they just kind of do an awkward, weird limp kind of.
I do love how that little detail was left in there, and they don't make a big deal about it.
Yeah,
Venkman doesn't call it out. It just happens, but you're like, that makes sense. That I understand.
Nice little character moment.
Yeah, and again, Peter McNichol, Oscar-winning. Oscar should have been an Oscar for this movie. Let's see here. Venkman at Pan's work, flirtation, weird handshake, the bathtub nightmare.
Yes.
Oh dear.
Okay.
I fast forwarded.
I was happy to see this because I'm like, okay, you're bringing the scariness, the seriousness back.
Yeah.
This stuff is super dangerous and is coming out to get you.
Yeah.
Which like that's like our callback to where we talked about the first scene of opening of number 1 where they established this stuff is serious.
This stuff is bad.
This is dangerous. Yeah. And we don't get that in this movie until like this moment where it is crazy kind of out of place because we've had this kind of light, fluffy thing going through until this moment where that bathtub comes alive.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa. I mean, this is some great like 80s horror movie effects going on here.
Yeah. So I'm going to pause this for a second.
Breathing pause.
So we just looked at the clock, and we looked at the time that we spent recording. We are at approximately 58 minutes of this podcast.
Yeah, sorry, folks. We're trying to make these...
Don't apologize.
Well, I mean, it's as you said, it's like we value your guys' time, and we did want to try to keep these things to only like an hour-ish.
This is true.
I mean, originally,
we're still not apologizing.
Like, our first brainstorm about these, we were talking about, what, a minute, 45 minutes max. And each one, we've been hitting about an hour mark. But I think it's because we get lost in this, and this is fun.
Yeah. This is what nerds do. This is what geeks do. We dig in, we investigate, we interrogate. We basically do what as a language arts teacher do to any text that I come across.
Yep.
And it's a great thing. We love it. We love experiencing it in the moment. And the beauty of it is you get to experience it just by listening to us. There's no work involved for you.
Yeah.
You just get to listen to us have fun. So what's going to happen is we're going to close this episode out.
Yeah, we're going to stop here at the horrific moment with the bathtub.
Right. Cliffhanger. But here's the deal. We're going to respect you enough as listeners to say, hey, we will upload or we will release the next episode. We're going to pause. We're going to open a new sound file, and we're going to start recording the rest of this thing to get this knocked out tonight. And we will upload this edition. This one will hit Saturday morning at 6 a.m. like always. And then the next episode, which is going to be part 2, it'll probably be a little shorter maybe.
Yeah.
It will go live like the next day or so, Untitled Part 2.
Yeah.
So you won't have to listen to 2 hours of us talking. You'll have a nice breakup. You'll have a nice breakup.
And you can break it. Yeah, you can break this up a little easier.
Breaking up is hard to do.
Please don't break up with us. This relationship's too new, listeners. You got to hang in with us.
We
can do better. We promise.
We promise.
We can change.
We'll get new music. I promise. We'll find a way. We'll put new curtains up.
Yeah.
We don't have curtains in my room.
We'll clean. We'll start doing the laundry. Just hang with us.
Just please don't leave us. Don't leave us. We need you.
We will ask you. Unlike Peter to Dana.
Yeah, there we go. We will put a ring on it.
Yeah.
Metaphorically, mind you, listeners, there is no proposal here happening between us and you in the internets. So that is part 1 of Ghostbusters 2. I'm rather excited that it'll take us 2 episodes. But stick around for the next episode for more Spengler, more Vigo, more Winston, Subway, Ray, Mayor, Vigo, dinner, things.
Awkward painting.
Oh, yes, awkward painting. Yeah, oh, God, yeah, that's going to be fun. So stick with us, and we'll see you on the next episode. My name is Aaron.
And I'm James.
And this has been Nerds by Screenlight. We will be back on the next episode, part 2 of Ghostbusters 2. A lot of 2s in there. See you then. You've been listening to the Nerds by Screenlight podcast, presented by Create at Morgan Productions, located in Fort Morgan, Colorado, USA. For more information on our production house, other podcasts hosted here, and further details, please visit www.createatmorgan.org. You can find us on Twitter at the handle CreateAtMorgan. Create at Morgan is a school club at Lincoln High School, our alternative education campus in Morgan County. Our sponsor is Aaron DeLay, a language arts teacher at Lincoln. Send any feedback to adelayedteacher@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to our podcast.